Welcome to the Darkstream, Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com. Welcome to the reprehensibles, to the unauthorized, to the VFM, to the Dread Ilk, and as always, to the Bears. So, an increasing number of people seem to be getting down about things, getting down about the way that things are developing in the West, about the challenges that face us, about the fact that history didn't end, and about the fact that we are not progressing into the shiny, sexy, secular utopia that we have been promised by the progressives for the last 50, 60 years or so. You know, I understand why people are concerned. I understand why people are worried. I understand why people, to a certain extent, I understand why people wonder about things concerning having children in these times and so forth. And, you know, I've been deplatformed more than the average person. And so I understand the way in which it's easy to feel like you're getting punched. It's easy to feel like you've taken a hit and so forth. You know, it's kind of incredible when you think about how far we would probably be by now if we hadn't had to deal with all these issues. You know, if we could just behave like anybody else and count on being able to use payment processors or Patreon websites or crowdfunding websites and all that sort of thing. You know, but here's the thing. When you take all of these shots, when you take all of this heat, when you meet all of this resistance, and you still end up progressing and moving forward and making progress and producing new things on a regular basis, then how can you think that you're losing? You're not. The fact that they have to deplatform Milo from every mainstream platform is an indication of their fundamental weakness. They are so weak. Their ideas are so hapless and illogical that they have to try to shut down everyone who does something as simple as say that there is a difference between a man and a woman. Owen Benjamin drew attention to something that I said the other day. He thought it was particularly significant, so I'm going to go ahead and stress it. When they talk about 56 genders, they don't care about whether there's actually 56 or 55 or 47 and so forth. All they care about is that the answer isn't 2. When they are saying all of these things, when they are attempting to enforce unreality on people, all it takes to completely upend their apple cart is to state the truth, is to simply tell people what reality is. They are not only at war with us, they are at war with reality, which means they can never win. They can maybe force their way to a temporary advantage, but it's going to fail in the end because reality is always going to impose itself sooner or later. It doesn't matter how many times you say 2 plus 2 is 37. It doesn't matter how many times you say that 2 plus 2 is purple. It is, and it will always be 4. It doesn't matter how many times you say that 2 men can get married. It doesn't matter how many times you say that a man can marry a fish. It doesn't matter how many times you say that a woman can marry a bridge. None of those things are the union of a man and a woman. They are all fictions. They are all warpings. They are all unrealities that they are trying to impose upon people and force everybody to say that there are 5 lights when there are in fact 4. The thing is, they don't care whether you say that there's 5. They'd be fine with you saying that there's 7. They'd be fine with you saying that there are no lights. What they don't want is they don't want you saying there are 4 lights, because they are at war with truth, they are at war with beauty, and they are at war with that which is good. Why? Because all of those things are reflections of God. All of those things are logos. So they have to oppose it. And are they going to go down easy? No, not necessarily. But look at history. Look at how long various trends and trends in societies and cultures, as evil as they might be, look at how long they persist. This sickness hasn't even been around that long, and it's already breaking the very societies that it infests. Roy Bear points out that he has a May December romance going with a rotting tree stump in the local park. They can't even deny that. It doesn't matter how absurd it is. They can't deny it, because they need to accept every unreality and every falsehood. That's what they are. That's what they worship. And so that's why we can have confidence no matter how many times they attack, deplatform, demonetize, whatever. Because we have reality on our side. And think about how it must have been in Rome when Nero was the emperor and everything was topsy-turvy. Think about how crazy it must have been to be in Rome when Caligula was the emperor and naming his horse a senator. As crazy as things have gotten, we're not there yet. See, part of the problem is that we don't have, we have our own delusions. Morse Code Bear says, how much death and destruction will we endure before the left wakes up? The left will never wake up. The left is devoted to the lie. They're not asleep. They're not stupid. They are evil. They reject logos. They reject God. And every single one of you who buys into the nonsense, whether it's the Bernie Sanders version, whether it's the Ben Shapiro version, whether it's the Jordan Peterson version, it doesn't matter. They're all lies. And that's why I get so impatient with some of you who are like, well, I actually, I mean, I think that, Ben Shapiro is mostly right. I mean, I think he means well. I think he's on our side. No, he's not. If you don't speak truth, you are not on our side. All of the civic nationalists that claim that they don't see color and that, they would love to vote for a black conservative and this, that, and the other thing. They are also willing tools of evil. They know they're wrong. You know they know they're wrong. All you have to do is see how they react to the truth. They react like a vampire that's been exposed to garlic in a silver container. And so, does that mean that they are, the civic nationalists and so forth, does that mean that they are intrinsically bad people and stuff? No, not necessarily, but they are deluded. They are rejecting the truth. And so that's what I always use as a metric. When people say, well, gee, how did you figure out Jordan Peterson? How did you figure out Ben Shapiro when they've taken in so many people? It's very, very easy. They lie. When they get a choice, they side with the untruth. And once somebody does that, they're not on our side. Somebody asked, does Shapiro understand that Judaism is in contrast and not complementary to Christianity? Of course he does. Of course he understands that. But he is a parasite. And so it's not in his interest to speak what he actually believes. And he is a dedicated liar. He's not a habitual one, an instinctive one, like Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson lies because he is more comfortable lying than he is telling the truth. Shapiro lies intentionally. There's a difference. But both of them are evil. Both of them are dedicated servants of the lie. Drop Bear says, I used to be a civic nationalist. I don't think I had access to info to tell me otherwise. I now know better. That's true. You were deluded. You were deceived. It's not your fault. It's what you're taught. But the question is not, were you ever a civic nationalist or not? The question is, how did you react when you were exposed to the truth? If you turn your back on the truth, you are responsible. You have made a choice. Let's see. Somebody said Owen's live stream was deleted today. That may be so. I don't know. In any case, if you're not subscribed to Unauthorized, I would encourage you to do so. It's just a matter of time before every single person you value on YouTube gets kicked off or leaves, including me. The Unauthorized is going to launch its first live streaming on May 7th, I believe. And so it won't have all the features that we have. But you're going to be able to see live streams directly on Unauthorized. I'll get to the super chats in a while. Vox, do you think that eventually the political mafia of Israel is going to fall? Which one? There's not a political mafia of Israel. There are competing political factions in Israel. Westside Bear and Jilly Bear Lawson they both point out that OwenStream wasn't deleted. Yeah, you guys, you need to be a lot more careful about this stuff. Don't pass things on that are not true. Check. Matthew said he finished Cuckserva this week, reading American Nations right now, and it really puts the immigration arguments in perspective. Any thoughts on the Athanasian Creed? I don't even know what it is off the top of my head, so I'm not gonna pretend to. But of course, Shapiro had a weak response to all the deplatformings. He supports them. He actively said we should hunt down racists and see that they're disemployed, kick them out of their jobs. And his definition of racist is very, very broad. And so these people are not good. These people are evil. These people want the destruction of your nation, of your faith, and of your civilization. I haven't posted my review yet, but what Ben Shapiro did with his new book is he is attempting to do to Western civilization what his predecessors did to America, which is redefine it out of existence. And so it's very, very simple. It comes down to Jesus Christ or the God of this age. Who is your master? And so, do I ever have doubts that we're going to win? No, none at all. Reality always wins in the end. But I know from history that that doesn't mean that we're not going to have bad times. That doesn't mean that we're not going to have conflict. That doesn't mean that we're not going to suffer, be persecuted. If you are thinking about giving up because of what we're facing now, what would you do if you were a Christian living in Pakistan? Or living in places where people are actively being persecuted. It means that your faith is not very deep. Your faith is not going to survive. The interesting thing, Ferdinand Ergutiga says Scotland does not exist. Scotland is an idea. Scotland's not an idea. And here's the thing. It's not a place. Do you know where the Scots actually came from? The Scots actually came from Ireland. Are they Irish? No, they're Scottish. That's what they call themselves. Nations are a people. They are a people who share blood, a people who share tradition, a people who share language, and a people who share religion. The less of those things that you have in common, the less of a nation you are. And so, it's really ridiculous that people don't even understand these things. It's just blatant facts. I was reading that. I mean, they didn't even come over that long. No, the Welsh are not English. The Welsh are British in the old sense of the term. They're Britons in the old sense of the term. The Cornish are not Irish. They're both Celtic, but they're not Irish. The thing is that the fact that we're going to win does not mean that you or I are necessarily going to see it in this lifetime. That's what you need to understand. It's not all going to be easy. And I'm trying to think of who I was talking to about this, but there comes a time when you need to accept that this is the new normal. Conflict is the new normal. You can't expect it to go away and because you're tired of it, because you're sick of it, because you don't want to deal with it. Slavic Striz, don't say stupid shit like that. Vox, did you say you didn't think people go to hell forever? No, I didn't say that. You're like this close to being banned permanently. Don't say things like that. Why on earth would you ever say, didn't you say something that you've never ever said anything about whatsoever? It's ridiculous. I said, I don't know, and neither does any other person on the planet. Seriously, sometimes it astonishes me. This is not stupid question day. So don't ask me stupid questions. That's a stupid question. Also, don't ask gotcha questions. It's ridiculous. And no, Owen hasn't corrupted me in any way, shape, or form. I saw through Ben Shapiro in 2005. You know, that's an utterly ignorant thing to say. All it shows is that you haven't read my blog for the past 14 years. You know, I have no thoughts about Tommy Robinson. I have no interest in Tommy Robinson. I don't regard him as being particularly serious. You know, he strikes me as somebody who is playing a role more than anything. Tommy Robinson actually reminds me a lot of Richard Spencer. You know, so any comment on the UK local elections? Yeah, that's something that I wanted to talk about. In fact, it's it's really interesting to see how politicians do not go off their message, even when they're observably being rejected. How many seats did the Tories lose so far? Last I heard, it was over 500, but I think it's supposed to go. That was like based on fairly limited numbers. Let's see here. I'm looking. They don't seem. Oh, over 1,000 seats. Tories lose over 1,000 seats in the worst local election for 24 years. Furious Brexit backlash sees party get slap in the face from voters. Okay, so what do they say? What do these dishonest politicians disingenuously say? Well, I think they're sending us a message that we need to get Brexit done. We really need to get Brexit done. So they should vote for my 3 times rejected plan. No, they shouldn't vote for it. They should just accept no deal, which is exactly what Theresa May said was going to happen by March 29th. Did it happen? No, because of course she lies. And so when you see again, they're servants of the lie. Theresa May pretends to be a Christian, but she lies. so she should not be trusted in any way, shape, or form. You know, um, the Brexit party is going to do extremely well, but and that's good, because this is the left-right alliance that's needed, because it wasn't just the Tories who were rejected. Labour was rejected too. And the other parties are, Dr. Britton says, the other parties are saying it's because everyone has changed their minds and want to remain. That's obviously not true. And so it's going to, you're going to see the nationalist party, whatever it ends up being called, becoming very, very powerful very quickly, because people want to keep their own nation. Let's see here. Just checking to see if. Okay, I didn't see that. Let's see. Anyhow, I'm not interested in all the "what about me" stuff. Vox, do you think classical liberalism may have been the first big mistake of the West? No, I think the Enlightenment was the first big mistake of the West. Ferdinand points out that, yeah, UKIP and the Brexit Party are both civic nationalist. That's right, because they don't have a true nationalist party. They form these civic nationalist parties very quickly in order to try to prevent genuine nationalist parties from rising. But, it doesn't really matter. All that matters at this point in time is getting Britain out of the EU. Thoughts on Sargon of Akkad? I'm well disposed towards him because of him being an original Gamergator like myself. But I wouldn't expect too much out of him on the political side. How much are you involved in Italian politics? I don't answer those questions. Can you please elaborate on the main problems of the Enlightenment? Certainly. The whole point of the Enlightenment is to undermine Christianity. The whole point of the Enlightenment is to replace Jesus Christ with reason. That's why it ended in the French Revolution with Notre Dame being converted into a temple of reason. And so, there's no positive aspect of the Enlightenment. None. It is the source of the cancer that is currently infesting Western civilization. It's what threatens the end of Western civilization. And that was the goal. If you look at the original encyclopedia, it was essentially dedicated to Lucifer. Yes, the Enlightenment did start liberalism, so obviously liberalism is not the core problem. The Enlightenment is. No, the Enlightenment does not directly proceed from Christianity. It's a response and a reaction to it. how would I best describe omni-nationalism? Supporting nationalism for all people. Supporting nationalism for the different nations. How would you summarize Plato versus Aristotle? Aristotle is about truth, and Plato is about the lie. All of these differences can be traced back to, if you ask for a source, you're banned, just to be clear. When I tell you something, you go look it up. You're not children. You're not babies. I told you something. You go find the source. Not difficult. I even told you, if you open up the original encyclopedia, what do you see? The encyclopedia published by Dennis Diderot. I have no interest whatsoever in proving anything that I say. If you doubt what I say, then you go look it up. I've answered the question about Richard Spencer like 50 times. I'm not interested in talking about Richard Spencer. Richard Spencer is totally irrelevant. Completely and totally irrelevant. Yeah. No, well, I mean, the reason that I react so strongly to these what is the source question, and sometimes those questions are just genuine questions. Gee, what is the source? I'd like to look at it. But they frequently bring it up because they want to then argue about it. They argue about the source. And it's just a waste of time in either way. I've said something. I'm the source. If you want to look up what the original source is or something, then you go ahead. But there are many sources. Often but not always, source requests are made in bad faith. Give a source and you rarely get anything but a deflection. That's exactly correct. So let me hit a few of the, we're at the halfway mark. So let me, but yeah, that's the other thing too. I can't figure out how to use Google. Can you tell me? It's ridiculous. Okay, I missed a few yesterday, so let me. Bearable Pain says, Vox, is the Federal Reserve free market? No. Or does it create free markets through the petrodollar and IMF? No. Neither of them are free markets at all. Free market means not established by the government. The Federal Reserve is a monopoly established by the U.S. government. The Wall Going Up says, hey, Vox, I'm really interested in the history of Sparta. Any recommendations? Absolutely, you should read the history of the Peloponnesian War by Thucydides. Hobby 425 said, got a set of the junior classics from 1918. Excellent. I look forward to reading them myself, and I cannot wait to do so with my children. We will win. Yes, we will. The Dashing Robe said, what is the end game here, Vox? Nobody knows. People ask me again, what's going to happen? I don't know. I know the, general scheme of things, but nobody knows. I don't know. And if anyone tells you they do know, they're lying. How would you like this culture war to end? With the complete restoration of Christendom. What is the ideal outcome? The complete restoration of Christendom. What does it look like playing out? Like World War. The Roger Scruton attack exemplifies war on beauty. I'll take your word for it. I don't know who Roger Scruton is. Will Mere Christianity streams always be on Wednesday? No. Neil Flesher says, God calls us to celebrate life. Emotions are not moral. How we deal with the mads, sads, and glads is a moral issue. Emotions are a compass to help you figure out where you are in relation to logos. Okay? Oh, excuse me. Tudfudders throws in 10. Christopher Fry throws in 2. SoCal Bear throws in 1. Thank you all. Cordell Mitchell says, I can't say it enough. With Christ, we are already victorious. In fact, he says we are more than conquerors. Thank God because you are richly blessed, and don't listen to the lies and despair from Satan. It's easy for those who are focused on the world to forget that it is the spiritual victory that is actually more important. But I'm saying that even just on the physical level, the mere fact that they can't stand up before our words already indicates how fundamentally and intrinsically weak they are. Sorry if already answered. Why do you think the founding fathers included freedom of religion in the Constitution? Because they didn't want the same sort of debates between Christian denominations that they had seen in England and in Europe. Did they never consider a large group of anti-Christian folks gaining power in the USA? No, they never did. They never imagined that for a second. And that was one of their flaws. That was one of their mistakes. But, the thing is, the freedom of religion in the Constitution, it's the freedom of religion, not freedom from religion. And it's only supposed to relate to acts of Congress. That definition has been perverted beyond all belief by those who hate Christianity. You said that out of heterogeneous populations come homogeneous ones. Would you say that mestizos in Mexico are now their own ethnic group? Well, they certainly consider themselves to be. They call themselves the bronze race. And they claim that they are the best race because they take the best elements of all the other races and combine them in themselves. I don't think that they're fully there. They haven't had enough time. But they're certainly heading in that direction. Was regicide against divinely ordained kings a first step towards the march against Christianity? No, it wasn't the first step. It wasn't even close to the first step. But it does appear to be something that did have a negative effect on it. Master Rebel said, did you ever consider yourself Gamma looking back? No, never. I have never had the fundamental Gamma behavioral pattern, which is lying to yourself. I've always been pretty brutal with myself. I've always been pretty brutal with others. And that's intrinsically non-Gamma. Also, I tend to thrive on competition, and Gammas fear it and avoid it. So, I've never had any confusion on that front. Can a Christian be a deist and also believe in the Holy Spirit? No. You can't be a Christian and be a deist. You have to believe in God to be a Christian, but that's not what a capital D deist means. A capital D deist is not a Christian. Where was the war where the rabbinics killed off the Karaites? Can't find it. I don't remember exactly, but I believe it was post Spanish expulsion, if I recall correctly. Gene Dirtle says, Vox, how do you make a decision for what career to follow when all the options seem bad with the current situation in the world? Thanks for all. Just take your best shot and be flexible and be prepared to turn on a dime if that's what is required. and is advantageous. The stuff that we're doing now with the unauthorized, the stuff that we're doing with comics, none of that was planned. None of that was part of the plan. But when the opportunity presented itself and when we tested it, we found that it worked. So we have put more effort into that. In fact, I was having a meeting with some of the game guys. All this stuff started as a game development company, and we haven't shipped a single game yet in all this time. It's crazy. So you never know. You just never know. Let's see. I'm sorry, but I don't have much patience for this sort of thing. I'm so lonely, but I can't talk to women. What do you mean you can't talk to women? Do you have a mouth? Then talk to them. Just pretend it's a guy if you have to. I mean, there's so many problems in the world that are self-inflicted, and the only answer to it, the only real answer to it, is get over yourself. If you were to ask Blockchain Millionaire, why can't you talk to women? Well, I just start thinking, and it's just like, so don't. Just stop being a weird, obsessive, repulsive, creepy guy and learn how to make small talk. It's not difficult. I mean, here's what I recommend. And I'm totally serious about this. Go get a book on etiquette. Emily Post, or whatever the modern equivalent is. Go get a book on etiquette and read it. And that will give you sufficient ammunition to get through about 98% of all social encounters easily. People are weird and socially dysfunctional because they are too self-obsessed. It's very, very simple to talk to people. In fact, it's really, really hard to get people to not talk to you if you're simply polite and you ask them occasional questions. How difficult is it to say to someone, "Hello, how are you?" They say, "I'm fine." "Great. What are you doing here?" "Oh, well, I'm blah, 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 blah." Everything they say gives you one or more clues to just ask the next question. And most people, and this should be obvious since you're self-obsessed too, most people like to talk about their favorite subject, themselves. So if you can't talk to women, then just learn how to ask them questions. They will do all the talking quite happily. Emily Post. What DOS first-person shooters do you like the best? My favorite's always been Heretic. Look, I'm not saying that small talk is necessarily pleasant. One of my very favorite memories of my father was one night he came home from a big charity gala. He's wearing his tuxedo and all that, and his face was just white. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. He looked ill, and I said, rough night, huh? And he said, you have no idea. I said, what was wrong? I mean, how bad can it be? You go to a place, you go to a nice place, they give you good food, they give you plenty of alcohol, you talk to a bunch of other rich people, what could be so bad? And he said that he told me that he was seated between these two women who were probably the two biggest gossips in the entire area. I actually found one of them in particular rather charming. She always had hilarious stories and stuff. But my dad says I was seated between this woman and this woman. Now I know what hell is like. Yeah, it was so funny. So, I understand that some people are not inclined to that sort of thing. But just because you don't enjoy it doesn't mean you can't do it. I mean, why do you think that I learned how to talk about sports? Oh, I genuinely have an interest in sports. But, I can talk quite reasonably about baseball or hockey or all kinds of sports in which I have no interest whatsoever. Just because it's a good thing that allows you to relate to most people. Hobby 425 says, everyone check out Owen Stanley's books. They are incredibly amusing and fantastic. They are. If you haven't read The Missionaries, if you haven't read The Promethean yet, you are absolutely missing out. Brilliant, brilliant stuff. No, I've never read Christianity in the Third Reich. Wyman Taylor says, Vox just sending support. Thanks very much. That's strong support. To say something in line with the stream, I think people need to reset their timeline for victory. We may go through trials and tribulations, but God will win, therefore so will we. People must reset their spiritual and logical basis to Christ. That's exactly right. And the thing is that too many of us think in terms of one battle, one victory, and then we happily kick back and sit back and enjoy the easy life ever after. That is really not in line with most of human history as recorded by man. Most of human history is actually similar to that which was written by the Assyrian king, Ashurbanipal, whose summer vacation usually consisted of, then in the summer I crossed the river and I went into the lands of these people and I burned their cities to the ground. And the following summer, I crossed the river and went into the land of these other people, and them I enslaved and burned their city to the ground. This goes on for 15 straight years. What we think of as difficult times is actually insanely easy times by any reasonable historical definition. So don't let yourself get down by it. Jason A says 1.2 Venezuelans have fled to Colombia alone. Eric Prince says he could take over with just 5,000 soldiers. Are these Venezuelan refugees cowards? To a certain extent, yes. But, I mean, they're not fighters. They're not armed. And they just want to, have somebody feed them. Growing up, did you like McDonald's Big Macs? No, never have. If we learn anything from history, is that at once empires and powerful kingdoms begin to decay and fall, there's virtually nothing that can reset their fate. This is why we may be in for a big defeat. Oh, it's why we are. Smiling politely says, I trust Vox, but not Owen. He is an agent. Owen's not an agent. Neither am I. Do you have any thoughts on the future of gaming? Lots, but I don't think it's very likely right now. There's a massive lack of creativity right now. That's because of graphics. Everything's too expensive to make. It's a very simple process. The more that games depend on graphics, the more expensive it is to make them, which means the more non-gamers have to be involved with it. When I first started doing games, you could do games with like 5 or 6 people. Then you needed more and more people. That's one reason why we got out of it, because we didn't want to develop games that basically required us to spend all our time not working on games, but rather managing people. Texas Redneck Bear says, Vox, I'm on unauthorized TV. Should I just get the basic package? Premium's $180 a year more, and all you get is a t-shirt. Also, please fix so plays in the background. We may have that coming on May 7th, but I'm not sure. I don't recall what all the new features are. It depends on what you can afford. If you can afford the basic package, go for it. If you can afford the premium package, then that's just that much more support to the creators that we can provide. We appreciate either way. There's an eternal cry of Deus Vult in the heart of every true Christian. Yes. Also, what did you think about Halo 2 versus Halo 3 if you played them? The only one I played was Halo 1, and I hated it, so I never played any of the others. Vox, have you seen your Wikipedia page? Not for probably 2 years. I don't pay any attention to Wikipedia. We use Infogalactic. Brian Kerr says, I don't like games that guide you through a story. Yeah, but Valve made a ton of money with Half-Life that way. Best Japanese novel about samurai. I don't know. Unauthorized is not yet an app, but it will be. So, all right, well, it's getting late here, so I'm going to let you all go, but thank you for tuning in. Just remember, there's no need to get discouraged. We live for the fight. We're not made, we're not designed, we're not suited to sit around and do nothing. That's what kills our soul. What feeds your soul is standing up, meeting the challenge, and either defeating it or going down in noble, self-satisfying defeat. You don't regret putting up a good fight and losing. What you regret is not fighting in the first place. We'll see you next time. Don't worry, we are winning. I'm Vox Day. This is the Darkstream.